You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the saints, and across the nation. And it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Welcome to the 19th of August 1996 and welcome to Reliving the War, the series where we compare each and every segment of the Monday Night Wars. It's the night after SummerSlam 96. WWF Raw is live tonight from Wheeling, West Virginia, while WCW Nitro is coming live from Huntsville, Alabama. We have a few shows to look at before we begin comparing Raw and Nitro, so let's check out the results from Clash of the Champions first, and then we can look at SummerSlam 96. Clash of the Champions took place in Denver, Colorado on the 15th of August 1996. The show opened up with another good match between Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio. Dean thought he had the match won after hitting a top rope gutbuster, but Rey got a foot on the ropes during the pin. The referee noticed what happened, and even though the bell had rung, Mysterio was allowed to hit a victory roll to score the win. Dean Malenko was robbed at Clash of the Champions 33. Jim Duggan and VK Wall Street had a match next, and Hacksaw got himself and the referee caught up in his tape, and this led to Wall Street picking up the win. Yeah. Ultimo Dragon, still being billed as Ultimate Dragon, had a match with Conan that lasted around 3 minutes. Sonny Ono distracted Conan and he got a few kicks in for good measure, but still, Conan was able to win the bout. This one looked way better on paper. Ming vs Randy Savage was up next, the manliness versus the madness, only Randy Savage didn't show up and Ming wins via forfeit. The Macho Man was still selling the effects of those devastating Hulk Hogan chair shots on Nitro. Instead of a Savage vs Ming match of the year contender, we get a promo with the Dungeon of Doom. A promo where Jimmy Hart says the Dungeon of Doom is the strongest force in WCW. Yep. The crowd absolutely hated this. They wanted to see the Macho Man Randy Savage. Another Medusa vs Bull Nakano match took place at Clash of the Champions. This one was 2.5 minutes long, and it ended when Sonny Ono accidentally kicked Nakano, allowing Medusa to score a win. Eddie Guerrero defeated Diamond Dallas Page with the Frog Splash next to win Page's Battle Bull ring. We thought DDP was going to be a good sport, but he pulls Guerrero in for a diamond cutter after the bell. Guerrero takes one more cutter before Chavo Guerrero comes down to try and stop Page, but it's no use. The third diamond cutter gets delivered from the top rope. Hulk Hogan then shows up on the entranceway to cut a promo where he calls Ric Flair the former dirtiest player in the game. The Hulkster stumbled over his words quite a few times here. The Giant vs Chris Benoit took place next, and it's less than 25 seconds. Woman was trying to take off Benoit's leather vest, and somehow Benoit got his arms caught. This leads to the Giant hitting a dropkick and one of the biggest choke slams you'll ever see to pick up the win. Harlem Heat vs Rick and Scott Steiner versus Sting and Luger in a WCW tag title triangle match would turn out to be a fun bout that was ruined thanks to the outsiders showing up. Scotty Steiner had the match won, but bogus referee Nick Patrick stopped the 3 count, pointing to Nash and Hall and feigning surprise. Mean Gene interviews Patrick afterwards, and Patrick tries to explain himself, but we all know that he's a sneaky little shit. And then Hulk Hogan faced Ric Flair once again in a WCW ring to end the 33rd Clash of the Champions show. This one was way better than the Giant vs Hogan at Hog Wild, but there were times here when Hogan worked babyface. It's weird, but I guess old habits die hard. Flair locks in the figure 4 and it looks like it's all over. Hogan manages to push the referee and this leads to the outsiders hitting the ring. The NWO get chased off by Sting, Luger and the Horsemen, and so Flair wins via disqualification. All in all, this Clash show wasn't bad, but it suffers again from short matches. The opener was good though, and the triangle tag match was decent. SummerSlam 1996 took place in Cleveland, Ohio, in front of around 17,000 fans, and the show opened up with Owen Hart defeating Savio Vega. Owen smacked Savio with his arm cast and then he applied the sharpshooter. Bradshaw came down afterwards to attack Savio. The Smoking Guns defeated the Body Donnas, the Godwins and the New Rockers in a 4-way elimination match. This means Billy and Bart are still our tag team champions. Sunny revealed a giant banner of herself after the bout, and you just know that there's a fan out there who now has this thing placed on their bedroom ceiling. Psycho Sid defeated the British Bulldog next, but what's noteworthy here is the great response Sid got from the audience. Davey had the match won, but he got distracted when Jim Cornette and Clarence Mason began arguing on the outside. Sid took this opportunity to powerbomb his opponent to claim the victory. Goldust vs Mark Mero was next, and you'll maybe remember that I had a real tough time watching these two main event Raw back at the beginning of July. Well, this match wasn't much better, to be honest. Modern day gladiator Farouk cut a promo where he ripped into Ahmed Johnson. Sonny says Farouk will be the next IC champion. Absolutely pointless. Ron Simmons deserved way more than this. Jerry Lawler vs Jake Roberts was up next, and Jerry's comedy act before the bout was better than the match itself. Lawler used a bottle of Jim Beam to win the match, and the King poured the whiskey all over Jake afterwards. If anything, this whole thing just makes you really thirsty. Mark Henry, who was providing commentary, helped Jake afterwards. The Boiler Room Brawl was up next, and this one really saved the pay-per-view. It's a fun match where the winner has to escape the Boiler Room and claim the urn held by Paul Bearer in the ring. The unthinkable happened when Paul Bearer turned on the Phenom, allowing Mankind to get the win, and The Undertaker took a beating afterwards from both men. And then we had the SummerSlam main event pitting Shawn Michaels against Vader, and this one is infamous thanks to Shawn Michaels' poor attitude and temper. Many will recall Shawn kicking Vader in the head when the big man forgot to move out of the way during a diving elbow spot. Vader won the match twice via countout and disqualification, but Jim Cornette demanded that the match got restarted both times so the title could change hands. Shawn ended up winning in the end with a moonsault, but yeah, it's a fine example of Shawn's pissy attitude back in 1996. It isn't a bad main event though, and Vader was definitely Shawn's biggest challenge to date, but it was also a little sad seeing such a revered badass like Vader getting treated like crap. The Boiler Room Brawl is your reason to watch SummerSlam 1996 though. The main event isn't too bad either, but the rest really isn't worth your time. So let's look at the first 60 minutes of Monday Nitro then. Thanks to their ridiculous match finish at Clash of the Champions, Jim Duggan and VK Wall Street had a rematch to kick off WCW Nitro. VK Wall Street managed to grab Hacksaw's tape, but Duggan had more down his trunks. Duggan scores the win with his fist tape, and that fist tape had to smell like absolute balls. Mean Gene interviews Duggan afterwards, and again it's all about Hogan turning to the dark side. Randy Savage joined the interview, and it's announced that Savage will face the Giant in tonight's main event. The Macho Man is also out to get revenge on Hollywood Hogan, but he says he's gonna take care of the Giant first of all. Chris Benoit defeated Bobby Eaton next with a little help from Woman. Benoit's matches sure have started getting a little gimmicky in comparison to his earlier matches on Monday Nitro. We then see Glacier still doing kung fu outside his ice palace and still giving promises that he's coming to WCW. Glacier actually will be making his debut very soon, and yes guys, I know what happens on WCW Pro. The debut of Glacier had been so incredibly delayed that he was pretty much fucked from the day he stepped into a WCW ring. The Sub-Zero stuff certainly didn't help either, but soon we're going to find out that Raymond Lloyd actually wasn't bad at all inside the ring. Lex Luger talked some absolute nonsense when he told Mean Gene Okerlund that he and Sting are gonna, quote, Strike with a different wavelength. What is that supposed to mean? Luger and Sting have a surprise in store later on in the show, and Sting absolutely saved this promo before moving on to our next match. It's Disco Inferno versus Scott Norton. A shoulder breaker and the flashback are enough to put Disco away. Ice Train gets interviewed next, and it's made clear that the Train versus Norton rivalry is gonna continue. Train challenges Norton to yet another match. Fans of mat wrestling shouldn't miss out on the next match. It's Dean Malenko versus William Regal. Malenko managed to pin Regal in the end, and Malenko sent a message to Rey Mysterio after the match, saying that the Iceman doesn't forget. The Horsemen then come out for an interview, and either this was done to waste time until the second hour began, or there was absolutely no game plan with this whatsoever. As Double A and Ric Flair talk about a whole load of nothing, and we get the return of the inconvenient fireworks right in the middle of the promo. Flair says Luger and Sting are two pretty boys who try to style and profile, and Flair says between Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan and Hulk Hogan, the Nature Boy has had more playing time than they have had shower time. The unopposed point goes to Raw this week. Malenko vs Regal was good, but the rest of the matches were average at best. I don't think anyone wanted to see a Jim Duggan vs VK Wall Street rematch. Up next on Nitro we have, for fuck's sake, the Public Enemy versus the Nasty Boys again, while WWF Raw starts their Intercontinental title tournament with Owen Hart versus the British Bulldog. Kevin Kelly and Jim Ross are replacing Vince McMahon on commentary tonight because, you know, two guys equal one Vinnie Mac. Here's our tournament brackets, and it isn't great, is it? But it isn't that bad either. Owen versus Bulldog is probably the most interesting match we have here. A few announcements are made before the two lock up. At the next In Your House pay-per-view, Mankind will get a title shot against Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker will face Goldust in a final curtain match. What is a final curtain match, I hear you ask? Well, it's absolutely nothing. I think Goldust vs Taker was just given this match tagline because it was the final match of their rivalry. A rivalry that took a backseat to Mankind vs Taker, so nobody cared anyway. Owen and Davey shake hands before the bout, and here we go. Owen brings Davey down with a shoulder tackle, but Davey answers with a monkey flip and a dropkick that sends Owen out of the ring. The British Bulldog holds the ropes open for his brother-in-law, and Owen cautiously gets back inside. A side headlock from the Bulldog ends with a sequence that sees Davey Boy Smith getting drop-kicked out of the ring, and it's announced here that Yokozuna will main event tonight's Raw against Shawn Michaels, and we're also going to see a 4-man battle royal to see who takes Ahmed Johnson's WWF title shot on Championship Friday. So, to clear this up, there's no Monday Night Raw next week. The show is preempted in favour of the US Open. And there's also no Raw the following Monday, but there is an episode that airs on the 6th of September, known as Championship Friday. This means next week on Reliving the War we'll have a special episode that only takes a look at Nitro, and the following week we'll be comparing Raw and Nitro, even though Raw aired on a completely different day. But enough bollocks, back to our match here. Owen has held the ropes open for Davey Boy, so both guys are playing nice. Davey brings Owen to the corner. We think we're going to see a clean break, but Davey takes a cheap shot, resulting in Owen getting launched into the opposite corner, and a body slam gets delivered. And then we see
Davey Boy Smith chinlock.
Owen fights out, but Davey manages to pull off a press slam. The video feed gets interrupted with static, and the announcers say they've been experiencing these problems all day. But no time for this spooky Undertaker shit, because here's another
Davey Boy Smith chinlock.
Even more devastating than the first. Owen fights out, but he takes a knee to the midsection followed by a leg drop. So far, Davey has been firmly in control here. Owen begins to mount some offense with a few European uppercuts, but Davey manages to grab Owen in the opposite corner, and we see the power slam. Owen manages to get his foot on the ropes during the count, so our match continues. Sonny shows up for commentary just before we go to commercial break. We come back and Owen exposes the top turnbuckle. Davey throws his knee right into it. As Owen begins working over Davey's leg, we see Jim Cornette backstage. Jim says that this match is further proof that the WWF are trying to tear Camp Cornette apart. From the Vader controversy last night to Clarence Mason trying to steal Cornette's talent to this Owen versus Davey matchup, Jim Cornette is feeling the pressure and he hopes Davey and Owen don't hurt each other. Cornette also teases that he and Yokozuna have reconciled and Yokozuna is going to destroy HBK tonight in the main event on behalf of Camp Cornette. While Jim cuts his promo, Owen applies the sharpshooter, but Davey gets to the ropes. A back body drop sends Davey out of the ring, but Davey manages to suplex Owen to the outside from the apron. The two men fight in front of the commentary desk and Davey takes a spinning wheel kick. Davey then gets chopped and he falls on top of Sonny. And while all this happened, Owen got back in the ring and Davey got counted out. So Owen Hart is our winner. Sonny throws a drink all over Davey and she starts shouting at the Bulldog that Owen was the better man. After all, Owen did win the match. This leads to Jim Cornette coming down and screaming at Sonny. Jim thinks Sonny is trying to worm in and steal away Owen Hart from Camp Cornette. Sonny accuses Jim of feeling her up once Cornette leaves the commentary area. And Jim Ross says that Cornette and Sonny are made for each other. I'm sure Jim Cornette would seriously disagree. A good opener here. Davey Boy was motivated tonight and it really shows. Bischoff says this is the second time the Nasty Boys have faced the Public Enemy on Nitro, but it's actually the third time. Plus, the teams fought at Clash 32, Super Brawl 6, and Bash at the Beach. So, needless to say, I'm really tired of seeing this matchup. Bischoff also mentions the lawsuit the WWF had filed against WCW during the Public Enemy's entrance. The WWF tried to sue WCW for unfair competition and copyright infringement stemming from Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. The Public Enemy set up a table at the ringside area and the four men begin brawling. Grunge and Nobs eventually fight on the outside, while Sags and Flyboy Rocco Rock fight inside the ropes. And split screen action follows. It's the exact same thing every time these two teams go at it. The men switch places and Grunge and Nobs end up on the inside, and just when you think it's going to go to a normal feed, the split screen comes back, and I just don't feel like talking about these two separate fights going on because they practically do nothing notable. We finally get one single camera feed, and look at this. Rocco takes a clothesline and he's left standing there in the ring not knowing what to do. Grunge trips up Sags and we see the drive-by. Sags then gets placed on a table for the Public Enemy sandwich, but it's Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge who go through the table. This leads to Nobs scoring the win inside the ring, and yeah, absolute mindless shit here that we've seen way too many times. It's fine seeing guys like Flair and Savage having multiple matches because, you know, they're actually good and fun to watch, but this was just sloppy brawling and the split screen nonsense doesn't help either. The Nasty Boys get interviewed after the match, and once again, the Nasty Boys are asked about Hulk Hogan and the NWO. The Nasty Boys don't care about Hogan, they want a shot at the WCW Tag Team titles. Brutal stuff here from WCW, an easy point for WWF Raw. Diamond Dallas Page vs Chavo Guerrero is next up on Nitro, while the WWF presents Vader vs Freddie Joe Floyd. And not to take anything away from Tracy Smothers, but it's insane how Vader wrestled the WWF champion on the main event of a big WWF pay-per-view, and 24 hours later he's in a throwaway match on Monday Night Raw. Mark Henry is signing autographs at ringside and Vader approaches Henry. Nothing happens, Vader just talks a little smack. Floyd runs straight into Vader and he gets knocked down. Jim Cornette joins the commentary team as Vader demolishes Floyd in the corner before the big man throws all his weight into his opponent. Cornette is still saying that Yokozuna is back as a member of Camp Cornette, and as Vader goes to hit the Vader bomb, the static returns to interrupt the broadcast feed. Vader hits his finisher, but he goes up for one more. The arena lights begin to flicker as Vader finishes his opponent off with another Vader bomb. An absolute squash match here on WWF Raw. Flipping over to Nitro, Chavo Guerrero is trying to get some payback for his Uncle Eddie. Chavo dodges DDP and Dallas ends up taking 2 drop kicks that sends him to the outside of the ring. Chavo then hits a plancha, and even though he overshot his mark slightly, it still looked good. Chavito then runs at DDP in the corner and Page is forced to push his opponent away. Chavo comes right back and he starts throwing lefts and rights, but once again DDP pushes Chavo to the mat. Guerrero then runs at DDP one last time and that didn't connect at all, did it? Dallas begins targeting the apparently injured upper arm and shoulder with some kicks in the corner and a few more on the mat. DDP tries to pull the arm out of its socket, but Nick Patrick breaks it up. Diamond Dallas Page launches Chavo into the corner, but he misses a follow-up splash. Chavo rolls Dallas up, but he only gets a 2 count. Page punishes his opponent for trying to pin him, pulling at Chavo's face while talking to the fans at home, and when Guerrero surprises Dallas with another pin attempt, DDP loses his temper and Chavo takes more punishment. Page hits a sit-down powerbomb and he deliberately breaks up the pin. A hammerlock belly-to-belly suplex from Page looks impressive, but once again, Page breaks up the pin, wanting to punish Chavo a little more. DDP signals for the diamond cutter and Chavo manages to counter DDP's finisher with a backslide. Guerrero scores an upset win on Monday Nitro. Infuriated, DDP takes off Nick Patrick's belt. I'm sure many fans were wondering what the hell was going on right here, but DDP ends up whipping Guerrero so bad that Randy Anderson has to come down to stop him. Anderson gets annoyed with Nick Patrick, wondering why Nick didn't put a stop to this beating, and Mean Gene Okerlund also questions Nick in regards to his recent officiating. Gene cuts to the chase and he asks if he has anything to do with the New World Order, and Patrick says it's all been blown out of proportion because of guys like Gene Okerlund and the wrestling media. Gene says he noticed Nick bought a nice new house before the segment comes to an end, and this is going to be a point for Monday Nitro. Harlem Heat take on the American males next on Nitro, while the WWF gives us a Mankind and Paul Bearer promo. We see screenshots from SummerSlam 1996 and the Boiler Room Brawl. Paul Bearer has turned his back on The Undertaker and fans want answers. Paul Bearer's reasons for turning his back on the Phenom are, well, they're kinda shit. Paul says he's sick and tired of being sick and tired. Bearer says he's fed up of carrying The Undertaker for the past 6 years or so. And Bearer left the dead man because, well, he just got bored with it, I think. The explanation is awful. There was a story to be told here, and while there'd be many more layers added to the Bearer vs Undertaker angle in 1997, the excuses given by Paul here in the summer of 96 were very, very empty. As lights in the arena again begin to flicker, Bearer says that Mankind now possesses the power of the urn, and Mankind says while he's never been overly interested in winning matches in the World Wrestling Federation, he is interested in inflicting as much pain as possible. Mankind has a chance to fight Shawn Michaels at In Your House, and this means Mankind can inflict pain on millions of Clique members around the world when he wins the WWF Championship. Mankind will pin HBK's shoulders to the mat, and HBK's shoulders will then rest on a hospital bed for all of eternity. The lights continue to go on and off, and Jim Ross tells Paul Bearer that The Undertaker is here, and when Bearer tries to convince Ross that it's Mankind who's making the lights flicker, The Undertaker's gong goes off and the lights go completely out. The Druids who carried Taker away at SummerSlam return to put the Phenom back on the entranceway. Paul Bearer says that The Undertaker is dead and this is some sort of fake. But the dead man sits up and the crowd goes absolutely crazy. The Undertaker raises his arms and the planned pyro doesn't go off, so he does it again and the arena lights up with flames shooting out of the ring posts. Mankind and Paul Bearer run away as The Undertaker stands in the middle of the ring. The commentators say that The Undertaker is alive and well as our segment comes to an end. Good stuff here. It's just a shame that Paul Bearer didn't elaborate more on why he turned his back on the Phenom. The American males have a WCW Tag Team title shot on Nitro, and they have beaten Harlem Heat before, so let's see if they can do it again. All four men begin fighting at the opening bell, but it settles down with Stevie Ray and Scotty Riggs as our legal men. Harlem Heat use some dirty tactics to keep Riggs in their corner, and Stevie Ray lands a big boot. Riggs gets choked on the ropes, and Eric Bischoff highlights how Nick Patrick is again letting a lot slide here as Booker T comes into the match without getting tagged. Scotty Riggs runs into a big boot in the corner, and when Booker misses an elbow drop, he performs a spinner Rooney and Riggs takes a jumping sidekick. Stevie Ray comes back in with a legal tag. A kick to the throat sends Riggs down to the mat, and once again Nick Patrick gets distracted, allowing Harlem Heat to give Riggs a good kicking in the corner. Riggs takes a suplex from Stevie Ray, and Sherry is now distracting Patrick. Booker goes to the top rope, but Scotty manages to dropkick Booker in midair. Booker tags in Stevie, and Riggs finally makes the tag to Marcus Bagwell. Bagwell cleans house, and he gets a great ovation for doing so. Booker tries to hit a pump handle slam, but Bagwell counters it, resulting in Stevie Ray coming in to break up the pin. Bagwell pushes Stevie Ray into Booker T, and Booker falls out of the ring. Marcus follows him after Stevie kicks out of a roll-up attempt, and so we have Booker T and Bagwell on the outside. Bagwell launches Booker into the guardrail as Scotty Riggs hits a missile dropkick on Stevie Ray. Bagwell then goes to the top rope, but Booker pushes him into a power slam. 1, 2, 3, Harlem Heat score the win. Tough call here, two good segments from Raw and Nitro. There was nothing wrong with this tag team match, and I actually enjoyed it, so I'm going to give a point to each. An in-ring promo with the Horsemen, Sting and Lex Luger is going to take place next on Nitro, while the World Wrestling Federation brings us that 4-way battle royal we talked about earlier. The winner of this match gets the title shot at Championship Friday, 2 weeks from now. Before the Raw match, we see some dude sitting at a campfire talking about making his big WWF debut, and he says that his pursuit will not be trivial, but it will be deadly. Ooh. This, of course, was the Stalker. If Ron Simmons was going to make his WWF debut as Roman Gladiator Mega Man from the future, then you best believe that Barry Windham wasn't going to get off so lightly either. So what we have here is the final four from the Battle Royal 2 weeks ago, excluding Ahmed Johnson. But this match isn't contested under Final Four rules. Elimination only happens when someone gets dumped over the top rope, so it's a traditional Battle Royal here. Steve Austin versus Goldust versus Savio Vega versus Psycho Sid. Sid gets attacked by Goldust to start things off, and all three men work together to eliminate the big man. Sore loser Psycho Sid jumps back into the ring, and he hits all three men with chokeslams before leaving the arena. Goldust and Austin agree to take care of Savio Vega, but Austin remembers what Goldust did to him during the original Battle Royal, and Stone Cold gets payback by stabbing Goldust in the back. It's good that they remembered this. We go to commercial break, and all three men are still in the match when we come back. Goldust is seemingly in control, but Stone Cold Steve Austin almost takes the Bizarre One's head off with a clothesline. Goldust then manages to hit Austin with a superplex, and Savio tries to eliminate Goldust afterwards. Goldust manages to stay in. Austin nails Savio with a back elbow, and Stone Cold decides to team up with Goldust again. This results in Savio clotheslining both men, not once but twice, and Vega is then able to eliminate Steve Austin. The referee tries to pull Austin out of the match, but Austin goes back in, and Savio again throws Austin over the top rope. Austin isn't going out that easy though. He comes straight back in and he nails Savio before finally leaving the arena. Savio is now easy pickings for Goldust it seems, but Savio reverses a curtain call with a spinning wheel kick. Vega lines up Goldust for a clothesline over the top rope, but Goldust throws Vega out of the ring. Goldust wins the Battle Royal, and so we have our title match for Championship Friday. Not a great Battle Royal, and it did feel a little rushed. Goldust 2 was an odd choice, seeing as Sid and Austin had way more momentum during this time period. But as we all know, Sid and Austin were being saved for a later date. Remember when Lex Luger said he and Sting are gonna attack on a different wavelength or some nonsense like that? Well, here it is. It's a master plan from Sting and Luger that will put an end to the New World Order. Luger, Sting, AA and Ric Flair are in the ring, and Sting wants the other two members of the Horsemen to come down, so Benoit and Mongo make their entrance. Mean Gene comes down also, and Sting says that he and Luger can fight with the Horsemen just like they usually do, or all six men can take a step back and realise that there's a big problem in WCW. Sting says that he and Luger don't trust Flair and Arn Anderson and they never will, but Sting also knows that the Enforcer and the Nature Boy shed blood, they poured sweat and they cried tears inside a WCW ring. Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, the Total Package and Sting, all four men are WCW. Sting says that in 30 days' time, the War Games match is going to take place, a match that was created for the Horsemen, and with all due respect to Chris Benoit and Steve McMichael, that's right guys, respect Mongo, Sting says that himself, Luger, Anderson and Flair are the only men with experience inside a War Games matchup. The Icon wants to form a War Games team with Anderson and Flair in order to put an end to the New World Order. The Enforcer says he doesn't like Sting and Luger. Lex is a body guy and his looks won't get him very far in a match like War Games. Luger says he and Sting give 100% and Anderson needs to consider Sting and Luger's dedication before saying no. Anderson wants to know if Sting can truly be on the side of the Horsemen for just one night. Can Sting forget about the little stingers in order to survive War Games and win War Games? Can Sting go into the gutter in order to make his opponents submit? And more so, will Sting promise not to submit himself when the going gets tough? Sting says that AA and Ric Flair know what he's all about, and he's offended that Anderson would even ask those questions. The Stinger won't give up. Ric Flair says that this decision comes down to Benoit and Mongo looks like he just remembered he left the oven on at home. Chris says that he's waited his whole life to become a Horseman and to get an opportunity like War Games, but whatever Flair and Anderson want to do, he will follow. Mongo bangs on about his Super Bowl ring and this gets a loud chorus of boos from the audience. Steve says if Sting and Luger mess this up, then what the NWO do will feel like a walk in the park once Mongo gets through with them. Arn Anderson confirms it. He, Luger, Sting and Flair will form Team WCW to take on the New World Order at Fall Brawl 96. I'm giving the point to Nitro here, an excellent promo from WCW that again highlights how dangerous the NWO truly is. If Sting is willing to team up with the Horsemen, then you know that some serious stuff is going down in World Championship Wrestling. After the promo, we get another announcement paid for by the New World Order. Hall and Nash are in Rome and they're talking smack about the Giant, the Booty Man, Sting and Lex Luger. Kevin Nash says there was no way the Booty Man would ever be running with the New World Order, but the Booty Girl, that could be another story. The Outsiders talk about christening the WCW title to the NWO title at Hog Wild. They talk about how everyone wants to be part of the NWO. They make fun of Sting's hairdo. And Scott Hall ends the promo by telling those who want to join the NWO not to call them. Hall and Nash will reach out to potential new members when the time is right. It's main event time, Shawn Michaels vs Yokozuna on Raw, while WCW Nitro presents The Giant vs Randy Savage. Let's stick with Nitro because we've only got like 3 minutes left for this main event. Tells you all you need to know really, doesn't it? Savage attacks the Giant with a steel chair during the entrances. Randy Anderson takes the chair away from the Macho Man and Giant completely no-sells the attack. Savage takes a beating on the outside, he gets rammed into the guardrail and he gets thrown into the ring post, and the Giant lifts Savage over his head before tossing him into the ring. The referee then calls for the bell. It's over before it even began. Our main event is a no contest. The Giant goes to chokeslam Savage, but Randy kicks the Giant in his giant balls. And so devastating was this kick to the sack that the Giant begins walking on his ankles. Jimmy Hart tries to attack Savage, but Randy takes the steel chair and Jimmy gets thrown out of the ring. Members of the Dungeon of Doom then come out and they all take chair shots before Savage runs away. The Giant gives chase, and that's it. That's the Nitro main event. Jim Cornette is bragging about Yokozuna being back in Camp Cornette just before Yoko makes his entrance. And yeah, Yoko still wasn't doing so good here. The WWF sent Yoko home to lose weight, but he came back heavier. He'd disappear for another month following this main event match on Raw, before coming back for a few house shows in September. Once again, Yoko was sent home to lose weight. And when Yoko came back at the 1996 Survivor Series, still looking the exact same way, the World Wrestling Federation decided to terminate his contract on health grounds. HBK gets another ridiculously loud crowd reaction when he makes his way down to the ring, and even before the bell rings, Yokozuna is sweating profusely. Yokozuna throws Shawn down to the mat. HBK tries to answer with a side headlock, but a shoulder block again brings Michaels crashing to the canvas. A collar and elbow tie-up ends with Yoko and Shawn pushing each other at the ropes, and Shawn takes a big right hand. HBK fires back by sliding underneath Yokozuna and delivering a few right hands of his own. They go through the Giant's usual routine on WCW, and Yokozuna eventually falls down in the corner after a few punches. It takes Yoko a long time to get back up, and HBK distracts the audience by getting a crowd chant going. Yokozuna makes it to his feet, and then Jim Cornette walks down to the ringside area. We go to commercial break, and when we come back, Cornette jumps Jose Lothario. Jim runs away before HBK can grab him, and this allows Yokozuna to take advantage. HBK takes the Flair corner bump, and Yoko follows up with a massive belly-to-belly suplex. Yoko then goes for a splash, but Shawn moves out of the way. HBK runs back and forth before hitting his flying forearm. And then HBK goes to the top rope. You think you're going to see the elbow drop, but Michaels hits a splash, only scoring him a 2 count. The band gets warmed up. HBK goes for sweet chin music, but Yokozuna reverses with a nice Samoan drop. Say what you will about Yokozuna in 1996, but there was still moments of greatness, just like this one right here. Yoko tries to finish the match with a leg drop, but Shawn wakes up. Michaels hits sweet chin music, and Shawn wins via pinfall. Raw goes off the air with a Shawn Michaels celebration, and Raw wins the final point. Raw just about wins this week's Reliving the War. WCW threw it away really, thanks to the abysmal Nasty Boys match and their lack of a true main event bout. Shawn Michaels is also hard to beat when he wrestles on WWF Raw, and even though his backstage antics were making headlines, he was by far the best active wrestler the WWF had at the time. The War Games WCW team looks interesting though, and it's gonna be fun seeing Luger, Sting and the Horsemen try to work together. Raw now has 16 points on our leaderboard, WCW Nitro has 24 points, and we've had 6 ties. In the television ratings, Nitro won with a 3.5, while Raw managed a 2.9, a great improvement over last week for the WWF, but still not enough to beat World Championship Wrestling. For the remainder of the year, WCW Nitro wouldn't dip under a 3.1, while Raw would fail to get out of the 2s. Remember, we don't have an episode of Raw next week as Nitro went unopposed, so we'll take an in-depth look at WCW Nitro and we'll see if the company could capitalise on a free night. Thank you for sitting through this long episode of Reliving the War. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.